Hey everyone, I'm Bhargav. Today I want to spend some time quickly to introduce you to Rooks, which is a package that I've been developing for about 2 years now. It's 1,100 commits old. I've been spending a lot of time on it. And Rooks is a collection of React hooks that you can start using with your components. It's currently hosted at um, over here. So I'm Bhargav5/Rooks. So this is basically just a way for you to charge your components. There are many common use cases that we as developers face from in our daily lives. For example, building a dropdown or building a slider, getting the size of the window, etc., which are very common and we use that quite often. And this package is an attempt to put a lot of these common use cases at one place so that you can just simply start importing them and start using them. So there are many hooks. There are hooks of various types. For example, there are some hooks which are lifecycle hooks like did mount, did update, and there is will unmount as well. And there are some hooks that are for your forms, like there is use input and there is use toggle. Okay, and there are also some hooks that are utility based. For example, one of the newer ways of picking the size of an element is by using observers. So when an element resizes, you don't just simply grab it from window dot element dot size or element dot width, etc., because that causes some layout effects, layout thrashing, etc. So you would probably want to use an observer, and there are mutation observers. There is also bounding client, which is also a layer on top of mutation observer, so that you can get the dimensions of your element in a very performant way. Okay, so why did I build this hooks and what was the motivation? So I think it was in 2000, I think 18 November or December at the time when the React team introduced hooks, and I was hooked onto the screen. They were showing some wild stuff where you can just simply import a function and put it inside your component, and it'll behave completely differently to what you've ever seen before. And ever since then, I think a lot of patterns which were confusing me, which were very difficult for me to explain as to why you would even need to have that pattern. For example, there is render props pattern where you render a function as a child, or there is a higher order component pattern, or some patterns where you modify the child as you render. For example, you see these patterns in React tabs, right, where some specific components are rendered differently to make life easier. So all of these patterns, right, they arose because there was no great way of reusing your logic, and hooks were a tremendous way of solving that, and I was hooked onto them, right? So that day itself, I started this project, and I started with a few hooks that they released that day itself. One is use input, and I'll just quickly start demoing that as well. Okay. So this is a small demo that I want to show today, what Rooks as a package can do. So one is use input. Use input is pretty common, but I'll just show. And you can start with an initial value, and you would be getting an input, and you can simply add your input onto the element. And as you type, the value as well as the on change prop is available for you to use. So you can just simply use this to send a form or whatever. Another useful hook when you're building forms is a toggle form. For example, you're dealing with a checkbox. Type equals checkbox, and there is checked. And you could use this hook, which is use toggle. And on change, I think we can do this, right? So basics. But this is where I started, and eventually I got to a point where I was building hooks that were more useful for components as well. For example, let us take a tabs input here, and a tabs input is just simply a list of a few buttons, and you want to just select it. So how would you do it without using your own custom hooks? You'd probably have a state, and you want to take a list as a as an argument and just iterate over that. And when a tab is clicked, you want to toggle that. So this is a pretty common use case. So for that, I built a hook called uselectable list. Selectable list. And the nice thing with Rooks is that this is built with TypeScript, and it has tremendous Visual Studio's IntelliSense support. It gives you all the props that it expects. So it expects a list, and it's an array, and I want to pass in tabs, and I can send it an initial index. Initially, I want it to be at 0. And what it returns is, it returns in the first argument. The first value in that array is an array. We don't need that for this example, but it contains the index and the current selected value. And you can also now get the ones that you really care about, how to toggle it and how to check if some button is matched. So one such handler is toggle selection. The other one is match selection. So I can use toggle selection. So when I click on this, I want to toggle it. So on click. So there is another issue with event handlers, because a lot of these times we generally have to do this, right? We have to pass a function. So that was annoying to me. So I made this a slightly higher order function. So you just have to pass and toggle selection with the index. You can either toggle the selection based on index, or you can toggle this based on the value. So let us try with value first. So I want the value to be changed to tab. Okay, and I also need to get whether this, wait, let me just print this so you can see what's going on. There is index and there is value. Okay, so initially my account is selected. We are not able to see that it is selected. Let's quickly fix that and use match selection. So a tab is selected when match selection for that tab returns true. So const is selected if match selection of that is true. Of value is tab. And instead of just simply putting in class name as tab, if is selected, then tab, otherwise tab and selected. Oops, 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 oops. Anyway, so now that is set up, I can now quickly click on the buttons, and the tab behavior is set. All I had to do was simply use the uselectable list. I didn't even need this. I just put them for just to show you what's going on in the console. But so that is the idea, right? When you're building a custom hook, you want to make sure it is as easy to use as possible. And when you're building a tabs component or a dropdown, what do you really care about? You care about toggling it, and you want to check if that element is selected or not. So building these kind of utilities is helpful when you're using a package like Rooks. Having your hooks that are ready to use into your logic is very helpful, I feel, personally, in my opinion. Okay, and one other example that I want to show is this dropdown. Again, dropdowns are something that you build very regularly. So again, we are trying to select one item from a list of items. We have already seen how to do that. We can also select multiple items if we wanted. So we can use a hook called multi-selectable list. So here again, the name is a dead giveaway. It's like I built Rooks only for dropdowns. But trust me, there are many hooks that you can grab from Rooks and start using it for your components. But dropdowns just works very well with Rooks. So again, it's a multi-selectable list. I want to be able to select multiple values. And again, it takes a list as argument. So fruits. And it takes an initial array. So I want my initial selected values to be just 0. Okay. And again, I don't care about the first argument again here, but I can grab the controls. And in this controls, I will get update selections and match selection. And I can use this to check whether a value is selected or not. So I have a simple list item here, and if it is selected, I'll just show this. Okay. So is selected, or match selection of, let's use index this time. So where is it? Okay, fruit and index. And I want to check if this index is selected. If it is matched, then I want to show this tick mark. So because apple was selected, it got checked. So now when I click on one of these list items, I want to toggle it. So on click, pretty sure toggle is also there. Yep, there it is. Toggle selection of index. Right. And finally, over here, it would probably be helpful if I can just simply list all the fruits that were selected. So I can, in this case, this is handy. So I just want the selected fruits. And here, if selected fruits dot length, then dot join. Okay. So this way, you can also use use multi-selected list for a drop-down to check multiple values, right? But there is again a problem with this drop-down. It is not closing, it is not opening, etc. Let's try to fix that with Rooks. So first, we'll use a toggle hook to check if the drop-down is open. Toggle drop-down open equals use toggle, and initially it's false. So I'm going to use if drop-down is open, only then show the lists. So I simply have to close this. Let's drop down. Okay, so the dropdown is initially closed. Now here, all I have to do is on click, I want to toggle the dropdowns open status visibility. So now the dropdown is opening and closing fine. Another problem is that this dropdown, when I click on it, I also probably want to close it. We'll fix that eventually, but at least the bare minimum is that when I click outside, it should close. So there is a super handy hook for this behavior, and this is called use outside click ref. And what this does is it returns you a ref, and whenever you click outside that that element which is represented by the ref, it will call you a function. So in this case, I want to call the toggle dropdown open function. I don't want to call this always. I want to only do this when the dropdown is open. So it also takes in an argument called when. So there is this when here, and it's a Boolean. So this will only be active when this dropdown is open. So I'll just put that here. And actually, let me put a console log as well. Closing. And now I can simply take this ref and give it to, which one is it? This. Okay, so now I click on it and I click outside, it closes. You can check the logs. So now I'm clicking outside, nothing is happening. But now if I open the dropdown and click outside, it closes. This is, I think, a super handy hook that you can use with your models, your dropdowns, your toast, notification, etc. Very handy. The last hook that I probably want to show here is the use key ref, or use key, in fact. So again, it's probably useful if you want to close the dropdown when you click on escape, right? So that's also pretty useful. So I can use key. And when I click on when I press escape, I want to toggle the dropdown open state. I want to call this function. And again, I want to just do that when dropdown is open. So this when argument is optional. you can choose to pass it or not. If you don't pass it, it defaults to true. So this use key hook, it binds onto the window, onto the document. So you can also use key ref if you want to, just bind inputs on perhaps the on an element. If you want to only listen the keyboard events on a particular element, you can use key ref. It will return your ref, and you can pass the ref to whichever element that you want to track. Okay, so let's see if that works. So I'm going to open the drop down and press escape. It's closing. Right. So use keys again pretty handy for when you're dealing with models again. So the idea behind Rooks is the same. I want to make sure that building the complex stuff like models and dropdowns that we do so often. Every website has a model, every website has a dropdown. And when you're working with these complex workflows, it's handy if you have a simple hook that you can simply add to your components. I just want to show use key ref if possible. Oh yeah, there's one other hook that I want to show. Sorry, so sometimes what happens is that you have, for example, let us say, for some reason you want to just log, a click when someone clicks outside this dropdown for whatever reason, just for example's sake. And a lot of times this happens. You have multiple refs that are corresponding, that you want to correspond to the same element. You are tracking the ref of the same element, but you're trying to use it with multiple behaviors. So use outside click ref is just an example, but you'll get the idea. Log outside click, and maybe. So what happens is that you have two refs here. There is ref 1 and ref 2, and you have to pass the same ref to this particular div. And we know that React elements only accept one ref. So there is a handy hook here called use merge refs that will merge multiple refs together. You can pass in any number of refs that you want, and it returns a single ref. And you can just simply pass that to your dropdown here. Okay, so as you can see, both behaviors are working, and we are able to merge a single ref. We are able to create a single ref out of multiple refs which have been joined together. So this use merge refs is a pretty interesting hook because it breaks the rules of refs. It uses a for loop inside it, but the idea behind refs is the same. As long as you maintain the number of hooks inside a component, you're not breaking any rules. But yeah, generally you don't see for loops and if else inside a hook, but as long as you do them carefully, you should be fine. So that's about, just to give you an idea about what Rooks is all about. It's just a collection of multiple hooks that you can start using into your projects. And a lot of these hooks are also server rendered capable, so they work perfectly fine on the server environment as well. There are also some hooks like use timeout and use interval, which are pretty difficult to build with hooks unless you understand closures and how stale state happens in closures. So I spent a lot of time on this, and I'm sure you're going to love it and use it with your websites. The last thing that I want to tell is that to install Rooks, you can simply install the whole package, like so. You can install yarn install Rooks or something, or if you only want a particular hook, you can also do that. All of these hooks are available on yarn as independent packages. But even if you install the entire package, your bundler will only use the ones that you're using. So that way your packages won't be bloated or anything, because all of these modules are ESM ready. And I think that's about it. So there are a lot of people who contributed to this repo, and I'm very thankful for them. And yeah, I hope that you're able to try out Rooks in your work, and let me know if you have any suggestions. So issues and pull requests are open. Thank you very much. Thanks, Kiran.